Hello, and welcome to Tech 5, 5 technology stories that I think are worth talking about. And who am I? I'm Sean Thuris, a software developer in the San Francisco Bay Area, where I run a small technology consultancy. If there's a story that you'd like me to cover next time, let me know, and I'll do my best. Just leave it in the comments. Our first story is the James Webb Telescope. This telescope has been 20 years in the preparation, and it's now arrived at the launch site. It's in French Guiana, a European Space Agency spaceport. It looks a little something like this. It's going to do its work in the infrared part of the spectrum, unlike the Hubble telescope. This will allow it to observe high redshift objects that are too old and too distant for Hubble. The telescope must be kept very cold in order to observe the infrared without interference, so it will be deployed in space near the L2 Lagrange point. You can see this, and have a little picture of that here. So here's the sun, here's the Earth and the moon, and none of this is to scale, especially not these letters. But an object at the L2 distance, the same distance as this L2 point from the sun, would normally take longer to go around, just as Martian years are much longer than Earth years. But because it's close enough to the Earth to be dragged in by its gravity, it basically will keep this orientation. The Earth will be between it and the sun, and it will make an orbit in one Earth year. And it's a handy place to keep stuff at extra space storage. In any case, this telescope was delayed in its preparation for quite a while, and it was originally supposed to cost something like $500 million, and yeah, here it is. The costs have ballooned to $10 billion, 20 times the original budget. You know, that's how it goes sometimes. While we're on the space story, I just have to mention William Shatner's comments after getting out of the capsule last week. I found really interesting, and I would suggest either watching this video or reading the transcript. It's a little difficult. It's noisy. They're outside. Other people are talking, so you can just read the transcript if you like. But his insights into what it meant to him, I thought, were really interesting. And story number 2, ransomware. There was a conference that was held just a few days ago by the Treasury Department, the U.S. Treasury Department, and a bunch of other representatives of other governments trying to address this problem of ransomware. They show Bitcoin because often the hijackers want to be paid in Bitcoin because it's more difficult to track them down. So they say $590 million worth of ransomware-related payments were reported to authorities in the first half of 2021. And I think you know what that means. The real total was something higher because it's embarrassing to admit to the public that you've paid a hacker or a scammer to let you use your computer. And here's another story about the ransomware here. So this gives the example of the JBS, that meat company earlier this year that wasn't able to function because of a ransomware attack. And as it happens, just over this weekend, after that conference concluded, Sinclair Broadcasting had a ransomware attack. They own something like 200 local TV stations, and it affected their operations. And then there was the oil pipeline, as you probably remember. So this is a real concern, and there's no simple solution to it. I suggest that you use strong passwords, use a password manager. I use LastPass, but 1Pass and Dashlane and lots of others work just fine. And that's a start anyway. If you want to attend a webinar, doesn't that sound exciting? But if you want to attend this presentation, I believe it's free. And of course, links to everything will be in the pinned comment. Now for the main story of the week, the El Salvador Bitcoin experiment. Now, I will admit, I didn't know anything about this. I had not heard a word about it, but once I picked up on it and looked into it, found it really interesting. The best single summary of what's going on there that I found was this blog post by some investment advisor that I had never heard of. And they talk about how this all came to be. So how did this all get started? Well, the president of El Salvador, Nayib Bukele, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, pushed to have Bitcoin made legal tender in El Salvador. El Salvador has been using the US dollar in place of their own currency for about 20 years. But this is a huge change from simply using bills that are circulating already from another country. Salvadoranians have divided themselves into about 4 camps. The Bitcoin bulls, who are excited about Bitcoin and they expect it to go up forever. The US and the IMF, who are poo-pooing this idea especially because the US federal government is not too keen on Bitcoin. Then middle-class Salvadorians or Salvadoranians who don't want it, and impoverished Salvadorians who don't get it. And just because they don't get it doesn't mean that there's something to be got. I'll just say that to be fair. So really what's at issue are 2 things. First, that accepting Bitcoin as a form of payment is not straightforward. It's far from having someone hand you a bill that you then put into the till, that you then put into the bag and take to the bank later. And second, whether it's fair and prudent to tie the personal finances of people of his country to any cryptocurrency, even the most time-tested one, time-tested over, 12 years or so. So the blogger goes and interviews people in the street, gets their thoughts on it, and then goes into how difficult it is for a person or a business that does not already have a Bitcoin wallet and a way to accept payments to go from zero to working. And it's worth reading. It's quite a headache. And then he goes on to talk about the smartphone app called Chivo that the government has produced to help people incorporate Bitcoin into their lives. And there is a separate discussion of that here in Bitcoin Magazine, where they talk about the fact that the code for this Chivo app is not open for public review. And this is something that security-minded developers and crypto coin people in general are very concerned about, because it might be possible to exfiltrate or sniff information about the user and their account in some way. There's another complaint about this whole thing, and that is from the creator of Ethereum, Vitalik Buterin, if I'm saying that correctly. Someone who is widely considered to be a genius. I tend to concur with that. He's upset that a particular cryptocurrency was mandated as legal tender. Legal tender meaning you can't not take it. You can't refuse to accept it. And of course, it wasn't Ethereum, which many people think is built on a better protocol and has a better prospects for the future. And this particular blog, Bitcoinist, takes the position that Buterin is being unfair. I think this verges on the drama channel if I were to go into this any further. Well, there's another Bitcoin story in El Salvador, surprisingly enough, and this time the headlines are maybe a bit misleading. So there's a geothermal power plant next to a volcano. It sounds dangerous to me, but hey, what do I know? And part of the power from this plant is being used to mine Bitcoin, which you can see here, a few pictures. There are some Bitcoin mining rigs. And you can see here is a container. And inside, it's full of computers mining for Bitcoin. Well, the reason that the headline's a bit misleading is that only something like 2% of the power from the plant is being used for the Bitcoin mining, and the rest of the 102 megawatts, is being used for just power generation sent out to the public. The AP has a story about this as well, and the headline again, Bitcoin mining powered by volcanoes. Technically true, a bit misleading. And finally, a related story. In upstate New York, there's a power plant that's being used to generate energy for Bitcoin mining. This power plant was mothballed at one point, but they've brought it back to do this and also send additional electricity to the state's power grid. They don't say how much. It says they run 15,000 servers, and this might be enough electricity to power 35,000 homes. Well, let's think about that. So let's see, maybe a hefty Bitcoin server might be using 800, 1,500 watts. Maybe more, I don't know. So I don't know if I would say 35,000 homes. Who knows? Maybe they're correct. But in any case, it's a lot of electricity, and it's being used for Bitcoin mining. Odd, this world we live in. Now on to story number 4, which is not exactly breaking news, but something I forgot all about. That is, if you have Amazon Prime membership, you have gaming benefits. You can download lots of downloadable content. Each month, it changes out. It's a new set of stuff, and you even get entire games for free. Usually, this means, in some cases, you download them directly from Amazon, the ones where you see the Twitch logo here and here. Some of them you'll have to sign up with Epic Games, EA, GOG, and so on. It's a way for those video game stores to get you to join up. But you can just say you don't want the emails and the notifications and so on, and you get the games and you can download them and play them. Keep in mind that, for example, if you claim Alien Isolation on the Epic Store, you don't have to download it. It's just there with your account. So you could download it actually and play it and then uninstall it, and you could go back again and download it again at your leisure. So if you want to build your library, you can do that, and you don't necessarily have to put them all on your computer. Keep in mind that just about all of these will be PC only. So Mac users, sorry about that. And if you need information on how to do this, you go to this Amazon Game Support page and go through this, link your Amazon and Twitch accounts. I believe this is what you have to do. Because I already had a Twitch account, I did this and it worked, but there may be another way to do it. And finally, story number 5. This one is a little difficult for me to summarize easily. So this is my 5th time recording it. The Nvidia ARM deal. Nvidia is a big American hardware company that creates GPUs, or graphical processing units, such as the video cards that you would plug into your desktop PC, as well as other graphics chips that would pop up in other places. ARM, on the other hand, is a British company that's been around for decades, and they design the architecture of certain CPUs. So a company like Apple or Qualcomm will use this intellectual property that ARM has developed so that they can design actual chips that are actually produced and put into devices. What ARM does is create the list of instructions that the software can request from the CPU to add numbers together and so on. ARM is very important, even though it's not a huge company compared to something like Microsoft that's worth $2 trillion. But ARM provides the designs for the chips, that provides this architecture that's used in chips for everything: smartphones, Apple's new M1 chip, and so on. So if Nvidia, an American company, were to take control of ARM, some people would be uncomfortable with that arrangement. And so rather than go through each one of these stories, I'll provide the links if you want to look into this further. It's a bit of a specialized topic. This was Nvidia's announcement last year when they said they wanted to buy ARM. This is the story talking about how the EU is digging into this. Here's a story from an investment blog, which you've probably seen before, and talks about the political considerations and the fact that really no one else could buy ARM other than Nvidia. Each one of these others would even create more concern than the Nvidia merger would. Here's ARM recently saying why this should be allowed to go through. And then we have to talk about the Apple side of this. Apple relies on the ARM architecture for just about everything that they produce, all of their smartphones, iPads, and the new M1 Macs. Apple doesn't want anyone having leverage over them. And so they have started to look into another architecture design, which is quite similar to ARM, that's called RISC-V. RISC-V uses many of the same ideas. It's not stolen from ARM. It's simply the concept of using a reduced instruction set, thus the name RISC. And so if you are interested at all in that, here's a little article about that. And it looks like Apple is actually moving in that direction. As of last month, Apple put out a call for RISC-V programmers. This would mean that they are at least developing a prototype, if not actually looking to put something into production. And there we go. We've made it to the end. So those were the 5 stories that I thought were particularly important this week. Thank you for watching. Thanks for staying to the end. And please let me know what you think, and I'll see you next time.